It's me, Destiny Beasley, aka the Broadcast Baddie, and welcome back. I'm glad that you all are coming back to Keep It Local, where we keep it everything culture, community, and what the 225. And you already know we're deep in this political season. We're inching closer to May 16th, okay? That is the closed primary election. And we're steady meeting candidates. And so today with us, we have Larry Davis. And Larry, you're running for a congressional seat.
That's right.
Within the 6th district.
Yes, ma'am.
So how has that been so far for you?
I've been telling people it's been fun. Meeting with the people, talking to the people, because the people are what's matter. The bureaucracy behind it all doesn't really matter. It's the people who get to vote. It's the people that get to take their ideas and run with it. So it's been a blast, Destiny. It's been fun.
Really? See, I can only imagine, because, honey, I'll be like, Lord, my schedule.
Yeah. It's busy, but it's worth it.
And you're signing up for something that's even bigger than just running itself. Because, say, if you are elected, going from door to door, that's nothing.
Yeah.
And so, you're 28 years old. You're young. And you're originally from North Baton Rouge.
Yes, ma'am.
But you moved to Livingston Parish. So can you kind of, take me on a journey from how it was?
My childhood?
Yeah, and up until now.
So I grew up in Glen Oaks. Went to Glen Oaks Park Elementary, went to Broadmoor Middle.
Okay.
And it was there that I actually got into a fist fight, my first ever fist fight. A kid was actually tapping me on my shoulder, kind of bullying. I don't like to call anything bullying because
you got to call a spade a spade. If
you got to call
it's bullying.
It's bullying. And so he kept doing that for about 2 hours. And
2 hours and you ain't snapped?
That's right. Well, that's when we get second hour is when I snapped. Like he kept doing it, and I just picked up that desk and I swung it.
Wow.
And Broadmoor at the time had a zero tolerance policy for fighting. And so, although I didn't instigate the fight, I had to be suspended. And so that didn't sit well with my mom. So one of the good policies that Jindal had was the school choice policy. And so we applied for it. They mailed us a card in the mail, and my mom handed me the sheet and she said, "Where would you like to go to school?" And I chose Woodlawn Middle. And so I ended up going to Woodlawn Middle for middle school from August of 2009 all the way to my 8th grade year, and then I left and went to Denham Springs High School.
Okay.
Well, I went to Glen Oaks High for 1 year, and then I went to Denham.
And so was that a cultural change for you? Because growing up in North Baton Rouge, now you're in Livingston Parish.
It really wasn't a cultural change. It was, that's actually an interesting question. When I moved to Denham Springs, it was probably a lot better. I was accepted for my differences. Growing up in an all-black community with different ideas, you're not always accepted and welcomed in. And that's important for a child to be able to, have their own viewpoints and grow in that. And so I learned a lot culturally. I learned a lot about understanding and was understood. So that's one of the... Now, elementary was the greatest years of my life. Because
I bet you were a child, didn't have to pay bills.
Didn't have to pay bills, didn't have to do none of that. So it was good.
Okay. And so just moving into this political path that you're on now. So what shaped that for you? Because I know that you're currently on the Livingston Parish Republican Executive Board. And previously you were on the Livingston Parish Board of Control for the library.
Yes.
So that's kind of like your political background, but how does that shape you up into running for this congressional seat?
Yes, a lot of people say that they're not equipped, but I encourage people to go look at how was this country created. So over 249 years ago, we had men who were uneducated in today's terms fight against the world's greatest superpower to create a country. And we have to remember in ourselves that those men also created the universities that we are educated in. And so what equips you is your general knowledge, math, reading, arithmetic. As long as you have those beliefs and understanding, you can go run for office. In fact, the very people that we have in office right now don't have any of those qualities, and yet they're representing our communities and our country. And so I encourage everybody to do that. But you asked, how do we get here? I've just always been somebody who doesn't like to talk about it, who likes to be about it.
Okay.
And so when the Lord gives you and equips you with gifts and talents, you got to go out and fulfill those goals. And so that's where I'm at, just a servant-minded man who's always wanted to see better.
And you're also a licensed minister.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
So you're a licensed minister and a politician. And you're running for a congressional seat at that.
Yes.
And so I've read a point that you have these strong Christian conservative values that is a driving factor in your campaign. So can you kind of, paint that picture for us out there? Like how does your beliefs shape your political beliefs also?
Yeah. It's all that I am. So when going back to the creation of our country, what ended slavery in our country? It was Christian Baptists that fought to end slavery. What created and took away and created the separation of church and state so that the government didn't mandate that we go to a specific church. It was the Baptist church. It was the Christian faith. What gave women the right to vote? What led that movement? It was Christians. What led to prohibition? It was Christians. So Christianity is the foundation of our country. And what I've noticed is that the same values that made me who I am is starting to be eroded. And I don't see anything wrong with the values that I was taught. Even going back to my elementary school, our 5th grade graduation song was a Kirk Franklin song, Yes You Can.
I know that's right. Yes, you can.
Yes You Can, a gospel song. And so those principles, like those opportunities made us better. And now we're starting to see the very fabric that held us together be destroyed, and we're starting to promote ideas and identities that don't make a country strong, that doesn't make a community strong. It hurts us in the end. And so my Christian beliefs is everything that I am because it guides us. It shows us where we need to be.
And so what about those who do have different religious beliefs? How are you able to, because some people, you can't just sway them over. But how are you able to basically not compromise, but negotiate in a way that you all are kind of on the same accord?
So you want to reach people where they're at. And for me, it comes with discipleship. So you don't all of a sudden just become a Christian. That takes the planting of the mustard seed. So the first goal in that is listening. But not mandating. So I don't believe in ecclesiastical laws, which says that you got to go to church on Sunday, you got to wear your hair this, you got to do that. We believe in civil law government. We're already living under Christian civil law. The Constitution is a Judeo or a Christian document, not a Judeo-Christian document, but a Christian document. So we're already living under Christian beliefs. We just need to see those principles kept. And so I believe in a civil biblical view, a biblical civil law view, where it says you should not murder, you should not kill. These are all common sense belief systems that you really can't argue with, because if you disagree with those principles, then what do you have? You have anarchy. You have a destructive country. So just going back to those simple principles that make us who we are is important.
All right. And well, we're just going to dive into, the congressional seat that you're running in.
Yes.
So you're previously running in the 5th district.
Yes, ma'am.
And so now you're in the 6th district. Usually when you're running for a seat in a certain district, it's usually that district that you're living in. So how does that work how you were able to just switch from one district to the other? Can you walk us through that process?
Yes. So right now, federal law, state law, you do not have to live in the district you represent. That pretty much dictates or happened because congressional lines change every 10 years with your census. So you're going to always end up with a representative who does not represent you specifically. And it's population based. So the more population we have, the more representatives we get. The less population we have, the less we get. And so the more we lose population, we start to see smaller representation, bigger districts. And so it's allowable by state law. But the basis behind it is you're not going to have somebody that's going to represent you that's directly from your community anyway, because it's so big.
All right. And I also read a point that you said that the fight was much needed in District 6 compared to District 5. So can you kind of talk to me a little bit about that also?
Yeah, to watch my neighborhood go down, and to watch the schools that my family went to since the 60s and the 70s be shut down gave pause. And one thing you have to learn about how God talks, you may get into something for a reason. You know, the Bible says man plans, God laughs. Or that's just a general quote. But you get into things maybe because of your own beliefs. But God has a say-so in where we go. Okay. And so when I got that revelation that, yes, he wanted me to run for Congress, but not here, but to return home, I was humbled by that call, because that's not an easy answer to come back home because of just the polarization and where we're at as a community, starting in Baton Rouge and then going to Shreveport. But to see crime start to take over, to see murder, to see an unbalanced budget and corruption with several local officials doing things that they're not supposed to do, while we the people suffer, while my mom's property taxes continue to go up, while my aunt's property taxes continue to go up, and she not getting the servitude behind her house cut because they don't know the difference between a servitude and a backyard. That kind of stuff is unacceptable. We pay taxes for to have representation, not pay taxes to have our money taken out of our pocket. So it was essential that I look back at that and say, you know what, they need the proper representation. But Destiny, even to bring it to a real world example, I went home about 2 weeks ago. My mom walked me down the street to her neighbor's house. And the neighbor is now scared to come outside of her house because they built a juvenile group home inside of my childhood community that's aging out, that's never seen crime in this area. Kids are stealing cars, holding people at gunpoint. Who would make a decision to build a juvenile group home in the middle of an aging community where they cannot defend themselves easily? It's unacceptable. But that happened because of their representation.
So we're going to dive a little bit more into, who you are and your beliefs and, your platform. But
dig deep.
We're going to dig deep and we're going to keep it real. But Localians, we'll be right back after this break, so don't go anywhere, okay? So I'll see you in a little minute. All right.
Advertising and operating a business go hand in hand. Mad Game Entertainment has a long, detailed history of working within clients' budgets and delivering big results. Mad Game helped launch the popular Go Vote app. We've been involved with several successful political campaigns. We assist the everyday marketing needs for small businesses and many other organizations. We custom fit marketing plans for the largest budget and the most modest. We look forward to enhancing your presence in your industry.
I'm so glad that y'all waited on us because we're back and we're going to give you more Larry Davis.
Yeah.
So, Larry, just touching on your Christian conservative values and how that's a driving factor within your campaign. You're also in support of Black maternal health.
Yes.
So can you just tell us, what was that driving force for you to just say like, hey, this is something that we need to shine light upon?
So I was actually in my day job on a training call about maternal health. We were beginning to get expanded into that, doing more. And the first 10 minutes of that training, when they told us what women have to go through, especially black women, I was outraged. And I asked on the Zoom call, I said, you mean to tell me that black women go into the doctor's office, they know that they're having these issues, and yet nothing is being done about it? And what I learned from that is black women are strong and have a high pain tolerance. We don't complain. Y'all don't complain. Blacks don't complain in general, and it's probably beat into us and just genetically in us. And so we don't always advocate for ourselves, including black women, when y'all are pregnant and going through that. And so the doctor may not always know what's going on. And so the main questions that I asked were, okay, are we training our doctors to deal with these issues? Are we training our doctors to notice these problems and to be able to deal with it, and not just, treating every woman the same, because every person isn't the same, including every woman. And so what I took from that was we need to create a system where our doctors are sensitive to the cultural differences in this particular area, because there are cultural differences when you're giving birth and women. And immediately after that call, I called my mom and my sister and I said, why didn't y'all say anything? And every woman does not get it, but like my cousin, my sister, they both know how to advocate for themselves. And what I mean by that is they created a set list. They told the doctor what they wanted. They told the doctor, this is the kind of music I want played. And black women have to be educated to know to advocate for themselves in their bodies. And that wasn't being done. But the fact that it's been ignored, we're in 2026.
I mean, not to get personal, I am a journalist. I am non-biased, but I will say, as a black woman, this has been an ongoing thing.
Yes.
This has been an ongoing thing. I'm not even just talking about, maternal health, but just the feeling of being ignored. And just to brush up on when you said high pain tolerance, excuse me, that ain't true, because, child, I have my pain tolerance. You see, I don't have any tattoos because I don't like pain. So that goes for some, but just overall, just like you were saying, just bringing that to the forefront and letting people know. So, and not only if we're keeping it on maternity, abortion is also a driving factor for you too. So let's get into that, because that is a controversial topic where you just have a tug of war between the two. And let's just brush up on that. Just your thoughts and opinions on abortion.
I'm glad you asked that. So my belief system is murder is murder. And the Lord is not going to bless a civilization or society that murders its unborn. But I pair that to say that women should never be without resources when they decide to get pregnant. It could be an accident. It could be a situation that it was, people like to say, unplanned. We need to make sure that women have the resources that they need to give birth and safe, that adoption is an option, not murder. Because we cannot sit down and we cannot say, you know what, I don't have enough money to take care of this child, so I'm going to kill it. And we have to start saying it for what it is. If I become an inconvenience in your life, or if I view you as an inconvenience, do I have a right to grab a gun and shoot you with it?
Child, you better pray to God before you do that.
Exactly. You have a right to kill me or shoot me back. So it's an issue that I don't think has ever been touched on a common sense basis. But just with people on the other side, this is what I will say. If abortion is staying on the path that it is, this world will be filled with Christian conservatives. And while you may be a Democrat, if it's a Democrat, I still believe in your right to live. I still believe in your right to be on this earth. And if your mom and dad believed in what you believe in, you wouldn't exist. The world would be one-sided. So, we have to have those honest conversations, because when you're honest about that, people can't find an argument. And you take away the polarization and the politics, and you bring it back to reality, that if your mom and dad took your opinion, you would not exist. And there would be nobody to advocate from your side.
And what about from a stance of a medical procedure. So just touching back on, Black maternal mortality rates. So I read upon some studies, because I do love my Black women, so I'm always, But I did read upon some studies how some women, they are in need of abortions for them to just be able to live. And so I did read one article, and it was saying that Black women were 2.2 times more likely to die due to pregnancy-related deaths in 2019. And when abortions took place in 2023, that's when it rose to 3.3 times more likely to die compared to their counterparts. And so what is your stance on that when it comes to just a medical procedure that's needed in order to live?
Yeah, my opinion doesn't change. And the main thing is education. So we have to educate women and families in general. And I said this on a radio newscast. Preparing to have a family, it's not like going out and buying a purse. It's not like going out and buying McDonald's with a Big Mac and a large fry. We need to start thinking about what it means to bring a child into this world, the circumstances around it. It's not going to always be good. It's not going to always be comfortable. But if you and your husband choose to have a child and bring it into this world, are you prepared for what comes with that? And we're not having honest discussions about that. But bringing up the abortion topic and how many Black women are faced by that, we have to go back to where did abortion come from? I mean, this was a eugenics situation that was created by the KKK back in the early times of this country. This was not a health option. This was a mode of killing Black babies, and making sure they didn't exist because the KKK did not feel that Black babies deserved to live. And this was a way to kill them. And so it's being offered to Black communities now as a healthcare option. But if you look at the true history of abortion, you find out that this was a method used to hurt and harm our communities. But even going further in the 60s, there was a case I was actually reading about where doctors would tie Black women's tubes so that they couldn't have children. And most Black women didn't even know that was happening. So there's a lot of things that correlate to that, but we cannot justify murder. We can justify it's not time for us to have a child right now.
Yeah.
That's a conversation that we need to have. We can't afford to have a baby right now. We have this going on. I don't know if my health can do it, because there's always adoption, Destiny. There's always other options.
So even while a mom, she wants to have a child. She does have her husband, because like you said, you're all for, family values and, having a baby, marriage. And so and so even when the mom's life is on the line,
yes,
and that's a needed procedure, you're still against that?
So when you, and I'm liking you pressing on this, when you bring that up, it takes more details, because every situation that puts the mom's life on the line is not the same.
Yeah, it's not. But if a doctor calls for it and they're in a state where abortion is banned, then how are you able to save that woman's life? Because if her life is saved, then her and her husband, they'll be able to procreate and maybe able to have another child. And this time, she doesn't have any type of pregnancy illnesses.
Resources.
Yes.
For me, which I'm not afraid to say, I would have to do a deep dive on that study.
And then also too, as a man, and you're a man, you don't know what a woman's body is like also.
Absolutely.
So
absolutely.
Also putting that into play. So.
Well, I'll tell you this. This was a hypothetical we did in high school. And this question came up. And what I said was, and this is the optimistic view, when I and my wife decide to have a child, when I get married, the question is, and this is just reality.
Yeah.
Babe, are you ready for what this is about to do? Are you ready for what could possibly happen? And this is just my my view on that.
Yeah.
We, to that point of living, have lived. And why do we live? We live to bring glory to God. We live to discipleship. We live to do what God has called us to do. And so when me and my wife decide to have a child, that conversation of what if has to be had. And that's what I encourage everybody to do. It's just like buying a house. It's just like buying a car. What happens if you lose your job? How are you going to pay them? How are you going to pay the car note? So we plan for things that we don't necessarily need. But when it comes to life, we treat it as if it is what it is. And no, we need to have serious discussions. When you get married, what if this happens? Because I don't believe in murder of a child. And I get the compassionate argument of it, but that child did not choose to be here.
And you know, you're not also getting men to vote for you, also getting women to vote for you as well. So this is a very controversial topic. And so, you know, there's a lot of women that are like, you know, this is my body. I have a right to say whatever for my body. And as a man, you do not have that right. A lot of women, they do view that. And some women, they might be like, well, what about the same for men?
I believe that women and people have the right to do with what they want with their body as far as tattoos, piercings, and things like that. But we're not talking about the choice molecularly. We're talking about life. And just in the example that outweighs the body is the fact that what if somebody hit you with their car on purpose? What if, you know, we can go into, do you have a right to grab a gun and go kill someone? What if your life is on the line? What if, you know, we can go through a lot of what ifs, but we're talking about a child. We're not even talking about adulthood. We're talking about children.
And so what if, because we're going to play into hypotheticals, men, excuse me, men, they ejaculate.
Absolutely.
Sperm, that is a living organism. So just like a woman, she has a fetus growing inside of her. Men, they have sperm.
I love this. So
they can just wipe it away and throw it in the trash, the toilet, whatever. Would that be considered the same?
Absolutely. Well, you're asking.
I mean,
you're asking
keep it local, we keep it real.
You're asking if yes. So yes, it is the same thing. Biblically, it is the same thing. And most men don't even talk about that. That's not even a ministry topic. Masturbation, and that's not a topic.
You know, I'm not even gonna say that because we're gonna keep it G on here. But
it definitely is, and it plays into the heart. And we have to still do education and educating men, but it still is not bringing a viable life. We're talking about, you know, the heart. It goes back to that heart issue. It goes. You still, like, and the sperm has to meet the egg. The sperm in our case is not meeting anything but air, and it immediately dies. But going back to penalties and speaking to women, there is not enough that is done to men for what they do to women. That is my viewpoint, and we have to hold the man accountable just as the woman. And it goes back to those situations. If women are coming in and we see them not being able to afford to have a child or anything like that, the man needs to be on the hook for paying for a lot of this stuff because it takes two to have a child. But as far as the life concept and destiny, I know this is hard. Y'all have the biggest job in the world. God has blessed y'all with the greatest gift. And it's not a burden. It's the greatest gift, and that's to bring life into the world. And it's I don't even want to say it's unfortunate because nothing that God says is bad. It's all for His will and all for His plan. But the reality is, it does fall on y'all. It does fall. Y'all do have the biggest job.
Eve.
It's her fault. You know. So you know, and it's a lot of conversations that we have to have about it. And the statistics are a little bit minor when it comes to that, but I do want to do more research on what does that look like? How, you know, what are we dealing with? Do we know prior to when we go to family planning? Because I know with certain members of my family, sickle cell. Before you decide to have a kid, I know that my brother-in-law and my sister, they went to go check to see if they had the sickle cell gene. There are still people who have children and they have sickle cell. That's not fair to the child. When you still have adoption, when you still have you still have so many options to have a kid. And I say this as compassionately as possible. Everybody can't have everything. And going back to men, there are some men who are low motility, who can't have kids, who can't produce for the woman kids. There is no other option for us. And so, I encourage foster care. These are the discussions. But just to say that everybody is called to have a child and bring them into whatever situation, and then when we're not happy with the way they look or what it may do to us, we choose to kill it. I can't sit down on that.
And we respect your views over here on Keep It Local. So,
Yeah.
look, I'm non-biased, so
Yeah.
I'm a journalist.
I love the discussion though, because nobody has these. It's finger pointing, it's yelling, it's accusing, and it's judgment. And that's one thing that we don't want to do, because as a man, we don't know what y'all have to go through. But I know y'all go through a lot.
We go through a lot.
I know y'all go through a lot.
But Larry, look, we still have a lot more to go into. So we're gonna give the localians a break. But make sure you get your sip of water, whatever you need, and come on back. All right, I'll be looking for y'all.
Indulge yourself in the ultimate experience at Phoenix Air Spa, where our professional services are specifically designed to revitalize your mind, body, and spirit. Relax, recharge, and re-emerge anew at Phoenix Air Spa, always aesthetically you.
Dread it, run from it, destiny arrives all the same.
Oh, you think darkness is your ally? I was born in it, molded by it.
Just bury me in the ocean with my ancestors that jumped from the ships, because they knew death was better than bondage.
I am inevitable.
I'm hungry. And I'm starving.
I did not have time to go to the grocery store today.
No worries.
For 90 years, Chicken Shack has satisfied your family's hunger. Chicken Shack's famous knuckle-sucking good fried chicken is a must. Don't forget about our variety of po' boys and side dishes.
Plus desserts.
If there's still nothing left in you.
You all heard the man.
I'm so glad that y'all are back with me and Larry. We're just chopping it up, just talking more about, his background, his political journey, all the way up until now. So, Larry, we're still going to dive deep into, who you are and why you believe that the people, you deserve their vote. And so, what can you put your name on? What can you point to that people, they can say, oh, Larry did this, so I believe I can vote for him. What have you done?
Ooh, destiny. The biggest thing, going back to serving on the library board, one of the first things that I was able to do was be in charge of a budget that impacts over 160,000 people. And we looked at the budget. We had a system that was spending tax dollars on items that was not necessary. I mean, we were talking about what's the function of a library? The function of a library is to provide literacy opportunities to the community. It is not to provide language services to illegal immigrants. It was not to provide ballet services or even do child daycare after services. That's not the job of a library. And so we looked at the budget. We met with staff. Staff could not defend where some of this money was going to. And so I presented a budget that would lower it $5.5 million, that would give the constituents a break, because what we saw in Livingston was taxes continue to increase. The burden continue to be carried by the middle class. Population is growing. So fire department, police, school is raising their millage, and the library is overspending on things that are not essential to its functioning. I believe that the library should exist, but the only way to protect the library was to ensure that it was built and using the money for what its original purpose was, not anything lagniappe. Because if a voter went to the polls and they had the school system and the library on the ballot, they're voting for the school system, and the library would be shut down forever. But also the biggest thing was removing sexually explicit books out of the children's section. This was an issue that was thrusted upon me that I didn't know much about. But the minute that I got on the board and researched what was actually being done, I said, this is unacceptable. And so those are the biggest two issues, how does that correlate to Congress? The first one is making sure that we have a balanced budget. The second is advocating from the side of the family, not allowing government entities to mandate that we call people names that they're not generally known, not making sure that transsexualism is not encouraged to a kid who may like the color pink and they're a boy. Maybe they like the color pink. It doesn't mean that they're trans or that they're homosexual. It means that they have a unique taste, and we need to encourage children to be who God has created them to be, not put things into their head. So those two things with the library board, but also as far as community organizations, about last year I started an organization called We the People, which is a cooperative endeavor with all of the conservative organizations in Livingston to bring the 4th of July parade to our community, because we're able to have these freedoms because we're Americans. We're losing that fabric. We're losing that that center of who we are. And so I decided this is a way to bring the community together, to remind us that we're all Americans, that Americans freed the slaves. We're not at war with our neighbor. It was our country that did it. And so unity and just being out there and controlling budgets.
And so how does that translate, just holding a congressional seat if elected?
So Congress's job is balanced budget. They are also tasked with investigating crimes, of upper level officials, and they're also tasked with keeping the president in line as that separation of powers. That is the main job of Congress. What my role will be as a congressman is to advocate. So if we're sitting in a black-owned theater in Baton Rouge right now.
Upstage Theater, y'all.
Upstage Theater.
Shout out Dr. T.
Yeah, thank you for this. If she called me and she said, Larry, I'll need a renovation. Can you find some businesses that would invest? That's what that authority brings for the local area. So some people get Congress disillusioned. Congress is not going to be able to allocate $50 million directly to a district. That's the truth. You can get on the Appropriations Committee. It's very coveted because you can bring resources home to your community. But the reality of me being a freshman congressman getting in there is I will have the authority that the United States office brings to be able to bring resources, have conversations with CEOs, small business, Fortune 500, and bring them here. Also with crime, we'll have the ear of the governor, we'll have the ear of the president, be able to look at innovative ways to stop crime. And so that's how it translates. It is nothing spectacular about Congress. And this is what I tell people all the time. When you have people fighting so hard to go there, you have to ask why. Because my job, what I'm seeing is I'm ready to go work. It's self-sacrifice,
Okay. And so I do want to point out that you did mention between the lines of those checks and balances between, Congress and the president. And so it's a Republican rule. So the current president, he's a Republican himself. And so what it appears to be to the American people, there's a loyalty to the president, loyalty of the party to the president rather than to the people. So how does that look for you if the people were to elect you into a congressional seat in the 6th district? How would that play out for you as far as the role of being loyal?
So this is where it goes back to our deep convictions. I'm only loyal to one man. It's the man that allowed me to be born, and that's Jesus Christ.
No, I'm just playing. You almost took me to
Got
church.
the Holy Ghost. Don't dance. Don't get up and shout. But that's who my loyalty belongs to. And this is how I answered that question on another interview. When I walk into Congress and when I walk into the Oval Office, I don't want the president, rather it's President Trump or rather it's President Biden or Obama, whoever's president after him or before him, I don't want them to see Larry Davis. I want them to see District 6 plattered on my chest. They don't need to know that I disagree with them, because here's the truth, Destiny. You have to work with these people.
Yeah.
If you don't work with them, if there's a bill that's life-changing for District 6, the president, if I'm on Fox News, CNN, saying that the president's a racist and all this other crap, is my bill going to get signed? No. Who does that benefit? That benefits Larry Davis and moving up the Republican chain. It doesn't benefit my people at home. My job is to be a representative for District 6. That means that my job is to listen. And if I have a disagreement, the Bible says go to that person directly. I will talk to the president if there are disagreements. I will talk with my colleagues if there are disagreements. My job is not to get on the news and bash them. That hurts my people. It doesn't hurt me because I'm labeled as the strongest conservative there is because I'm attacking people. That's not my job. My job is to put my people first, make sure that their voice is heard before mine is. That's essential.
Yes, and that also goes back to what we're seeing even now when we see these news headlines and we see, our sitting president and he's, just spouting out whatever it is, what's going on between our country and Iran. And so, and that's where the checks and balances come in, and you have potential war crimes. So if you're elected and sitting in that seat, how would you approach that? Just those checks and balances.
Yeah, it's important to know a little bit of constitutional law and some history. So the president does have leeway in the War Powers Act. That's one of the acts that you're referring to. It's not a declaration of war as much as it is a retaliation. That is what the president is using. And so one thing you have to know about the White House and their lawyers, they're very targeted in what the language that they use. So the president is using this as a retaliation to what Iran has done to us for 37 years. That clears him under the War Powers Act. It's not necessarily him declaring war on a nation. It is him defending American interest. And
even with what's going on now.
What do you mean?
As far as the straits and
absolutely
just overall.
And it's not me taking a position. It's me looking at the law. And to use him, you have to use previous presidents and what they've done, and drone strikes under Obama, and the millions of children or thousands of children that died under him with unauthorized drone strikes. Congress never authorized that. He authorized it. But the Supreme Court in those cases have given presidents leeway to dictate what's in American interest or not. I'll tell you, my opinion is,
and that's what we want to hear.
That's what you want to. 37 years. If Iran has been attacking us for 37 years, we're going to wait till Iran attacks us. And what I mean by that is, when they get ready to do something to us, we respond. We're the strongest military in the world. Why do we have to preempt attack anyone? I have problems. I'm looking at it and I'm saying, if America is the strongest nation in the world, why are we in this war for 2 months when we just went to Venezuela and captured a ruler? Why are we not putting our full force in this? And this should not be impacting Americans for going on 2 months. American interest is illegal immigration. We're right now have Mexico that is directly connected to our country, that is sending in illegal drugs, that's killing family members and hooking people on drugs. That is directly affecting Americans today. That's an act of war, in my opinion. Let's go into Mexico and let's use force to stop the illegal immigration and stop the illegal drug trade. Iran, and the Bible will tell you this, the Middle East is a cluster that is not going to be solved by us getting involved in their dictates. Our job is to protect, in my opinion, is to protect American interests. When American interests begin to get on the line, that's when we act. We don't need to preempt attack any other country. We're not weak. We don't need to go and we can wait. We can wait it out and we can see and we can respond decisively. The biggest impact is we're losing our own people right now to drug overdoses. I've had several relatives too in the last 6 months that have died because of fentanyl lacing. That's an act of war. Every American life that is lost due to drugs and due to crime and illegal immigration, that impacts not only our way of life, but it impacts our finances. We're paying for this. Your mom, your relatives are paying for every illegal immigrant. We didn't get handouts. Your mama didn't get handouts just to take care of you. But we're buying.
Technically, we're just gonna do a little history lesson. Well, with us, I mean, we ain't asked to be here, so that's
correct. And we've had to work for everything we've gotten, and not bad. I mean, to me, that's not a bad thing, because you're able to look back at it and say we built it. And that's why my unity message is black and white Americans built the country. And we have to stick together, because it's other forces that are trying to divide us. China, Russia, the Muslim nations, they're trying to divide us and keep us divided based on race, to where we cannot even see our shared history.
And how, if you just dive into that a little bit, how do they play a part in the division?
So there's a communist handbook, and some of the people that's on the news, some of the people that is educating us are educating us from a socialistic Marxist viewpoint. And the main goal is to drive a wedge between two peoples. And right now that is white and black Americans. When we have a shared ancestry, we have shared commonalities, including in South Louisiana, we're closer than what we are together. There were white slave owners and there were black slave owners in South Louisiana. Frenchmen married black women. Marie Therese Coin was one. The first lieutenant governor in Louisiana was a black man. We have to go back to our history and realize we're not what the news tells us, that we're an oppressed people, beat down, kicked. We are a strong people. The first millionaire in our country was Madam C.J. Walker with her hair care products. This is important history that has been overshadowed because foreign nations pay off elected officials to continue to sow discord between us two peoples, because we're stronger together.
And so just to talk more about that, because it's more of I believe it's more into history than, the inputs of other nations.
Absolutely.
And so
absolutely.
Even when you said shared ancestry, I mean, technically it was by force.
In some cases, but when you look at
really majority cases, because there were some plantations that were just breeding plantations, and you have to also come into play. A lot of enslaved people were raped.
Yeah, so
and they bore children that
out of force. That's a tactic that they use because with anything that's majority, and I'm not saying slavery is good, but anything that's majority, okay, there's going to be that loud statistic that says people are raped. Okay, marriage is a good thing, but then you're going to have people say, well, what about abusive marriage? Okay, we're not talking about abusive marriage. The overall union of marriage is a good thing, but there's bad apples in everything. There's bad apples in slavery, but you can't negate the history that there were black families that owned slaves. There were black families that were married into by Frenchmen, not by force, but they were married into. And some of those families, those breeding places, they didn't grow up to own slaves. They were, they were set aside and brought in out of wedlock. It's a lot to that, but the vast majority of that situation, which I love talking about this, was cultural. And what I mean by that is, if you actually go read some of the letters that happened with Jefferson Davis, there were blacks that fought on the side of the Confederacy. They were called orderlies, because slavery was not an everybody a part of. We have to still remember that it was an economic driver. It's like Walmart.
Because, I mean, if we keep it real, enslaved people, they were property. So of course that would be an economic driving force for slave owners.
Yeah.
That's how they made their money, through enslavement.
But where did it begin? Do they ever tell you where it began? Who were the first slaves in America? White indentured servants.
But you have,
and then the Indians.
Indentured servitude is different from.
Absolutely, but then but it's still enslavement. You didn't have a choice. You still were poor. This person was rich, and it may have not been.
Indentured servitude. That's where you come into, paying off a debt. That's considered part of indentured servitude.
But could you emancipate yourself in slavery? You absolutely could buy your freedom in slavery.
But on what occasion is that rare? Is
No,
that common?
it happened quite a lot.
But I'm saying, just overall, is that rare or common?
Common that slaves bought themselves out of freedom to be able to afford, probably rare, but an option.
But it would take a long time.
It would take time to work
But,
it all.
And we can get all into this because
We need to. We have to hit it. We have to.
It's a layer upon the layers upon layers upon layers that a lot of people, you don't get taught about it in school. That's something that you have to do your own research on.
Yes, and I know a little bit. That's like
so that's why I was like, is that rare or is that common that oh, I'm enslaved and I'm about to buy my freedom? Well, how long will that take you until you die?
Well, it not always. And when we look back at history, it's important that we don't put our judgments on it because we didn't live it. And there's a lot. I mean, there's a lot today that people are gonna look back on and say, "Wait."
But it's a lot of truths that have not been
absolutely. But
discovered.
what is our common enemy? Our common enemy is sin. It's not a white man or a black man because
no.
white men were the people who voted for the emancipation. So if we say all white people are bad, well, what about the men who voted for the emancipation to come?
Because there were some abolitionists that were white. So it's not necessarily white, black, but it's all about the principle. And
absolutely.
I will say this. It's about the greatness that we have overcome over these many years. And a lot of people, they don't dive deep into it. We always talk about enslavement of the people that were brought over, because I don't like to call them slaves because that's not who they are. They were enslaved. And so as we just dive deep into that, it's bigger than that. It's something that we will never imagine in the years that we live to come. And so I think that's something that we should talk about. And just you're representing a majority minority district also.
Yep.
So a lot of people in your district, they're black, and so
they're not taught about W.E.B. Du Bois. They're not taught about Sojourner Truth. They're not taught about Frederick Douglass or Pinchback, who was the first lieutenant governor. And this happened, Destiny. Pinchback was our governor right after the Civil War. This was during Reconstruction. So what does that tell you about the nature of life and quality of life for black Americans? This man was living. Frederick Douglass was a freed enslaved person who was able to champion for the abolitionist movement. So that tells you that our country works. There's a movie that I encourage everybody to go watch. It's called
The Country of the People.
Wait, what did I say? What did you ask?
You said that's how our country works. I just wanted to
well,
is that the country or the people?
Well,
because if we're talking about a specific people, that was a lot that they had to endure just to get to where they were at that time, even during Reconstruction. But Reconstruction still failed because if you look, it's like you're pulling a rug underneath their feet.
I'm glad you said it like that. Now remember that quote when you said Reconstruction with the pulling the rug, because that's a good point. Because that's a good point.
Say, for instance, if Reconstruction still were to play out, America would look different than it would now, would it not?
America would look the South would look different. North America is a thriving area. I mean, they're highly educated. They make more money in their jobs. They destroyed the South with what they did and how they did it. And anything by force does not do good. We can talk about desegregation of schools. Who's impacted by desegregation of schools right now? White schools or black schools?
I'll let you answer that.
It's black schools.
Because, like I said, I'm on.
It's black schools. Black schools are impacted by that. We with desegregation, you can look at EBR right now. We're losing Estruma. We're losing Glen Oaks. We were impacted by desegregation of schools, and that's why I say it's a myriad of topics, but it's important that we look at history not emotionally, and we have to recount that. It's a sin issue, not a race issue, and it's a lack of moral clarity. But on the other side of it, what ended slavery? It was the Industrial Revolution. It was the invention of the machine. It was the steel mill. You no longer needed people to do your labor. And why did Africans start getting sold? It's because our own people thought that we were less than in certain groups and sold us across the river. But the second group of people that were enslaved in America were the Indians. What happened to the Indians? They could not withstand the disease of the Europeans. Here we are. Africa made money off this. And so we have to look at history unbiasedly and just say, if Jesus was a part of the conversation a lot earlier, we would have had abolition. We would have had emancipation. It was the black church, the Baptist church that started and championed emancipation. And that's why we are here to where we are today. But we have had black leadership. I encourage everybody, go to the African American Museum in D.C. It is
and
one of...
we also have one here in Dunstanville.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Never been to it.
You should try
in all my life.
the River Road African American Museum. It's a great place. I've been there countless of times.
We'll have to go there.
I've also learned...
We should have did it there. We should have had something there.
And that's where I also, learned a lot of my history. I've always been into Black history specifically. And that's where, a lot of people that know me personally, they know that's where my passion is. But at the end of the day, I'm still non-biased and I'm a journalist. I have to put that out there because I don't want people to think one thing.
No.
But I will say, just to point out, you still have colonies in Africa. So you have British colonies, the French colonies.
Yeah.
So
well, not anymore. So
at the time.
At the time.
But you can still see, that it still exists in a way because you have people in Africa that speak French. I have an aunt. She's from Senegal and she speaks French. So, but we can get all into that. Larry, we honestly could really just go on and on and on and on.
But we need to, Destiny. This is what breaks the chain and what tells the officials in the government that we are not a monolithic community. It's knowing our history and understanding who these people are, but not making our common enemy are our foreign adversaries. It's not our history. It's not our neighbor. It's the people that use our history, twist it and manipulate it, but don't give credit to the people who work to bring it here. And I tell people that all the time. It was the American flag that freed the slaves. It was the American flag and the American legislative officials that did this. It was also Abraham Lincoln, which when we talk about law, Abraham Lincoln actually took away people's rights. He removed white leadership from the South, which I disagree with because we're talking about the Constitution, we're talking about habeas corpus, we're talking about a lot. But he removed white leadership from the South and forced black leadership on the South. And when I learned about that in school, my professor said that, and I was like, So that happened, and then he said, next class we're going to talk about Jim Crow. I said, wait. So you mean to tell me that Abraham Lincoln took away the rights of American citizens, put black leaders? That would be like if Sharon Weston Broome was the mayor and somebody came in, a Republican, removed her from office and put another person in who was not elected. That's what Abraham Lincoln did. Brought them in. All you did was create enemies for the black people, and right after that you have Jim Crow. You have blacks and whites living good together throughout history in some form or fashion rather than north and south. And then you take away their rights as Americans by putting people into office that were not elected. And then when Abraham Lincoln is assassinated, the next president makes deals, removes those leaderships, and leave black communities to fend for themselves after you just made a common enemy against us. And we wonder where Jim Crow came from.
The separate but equal. So it's...
Well, it was vengeance. To me, I look at Jim Crow and I say it was vengeance. It was petty vengeance from people who said, because we have I asked a question, Destiny, I said, well, what laws, when Pinchback was our governor or lieutenant governor, what laws did he pass? Because we're not just talking about white leadership being removed. We're talking about Republican legislatures and Republican and martial laws ruling the South. So they had just enough time to pass laws that would help us that they didn't even pass any laws. So you remove us from that. Pinchback goes on and lives his life.
We also have Union troops. They were removed from the South as well, so that plays a part.
Yeah.
So when you remove Union troops, that means you have a lot of backlash also.
Yeah.
So,
but where did that backlash come from?
We can go into it on and on. But look,
it's interesting stuff.
But look, I have to, because look, these localians, they're going to be on here for about 1 hour and 35,000. So look, Larry, we could probably chop it up about this off camera. Yeah. We really can, because look, I'm non-biased. but we're going to talk about that, get into our history off camera.
Yes. No, let's do it. Let's do it.
But Localians, I just want to thank you so much for sticking with us through the end and tuning in. And Larry, just before we leave out of here, just what is something that you would like to leave with our audience?
This is an important election. We need y'all to go and vote. We need y'all to have hope again in America. Don't believe that your vote doesn't matter, and trust in this candidacy that we will fight for you, we will advocate for you, and we will be there for you like none other. And thank you again, Destiny, for having me on.
Of course. We welcome everybody to come on to Keep It Local, where we keep it everything culture, community, and the 225. All right, well, I'll see y'all later on the next episode. So make sure y'all subscribe to Broadcast Baddie TV and also follow your girl on Facebook, Destiny Beasley, so you don't miss out on what you matter most to this community. All right, see you later.